Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Maloney, and welcome to your special payback edition of the Sacktown Slam. Now, this may not get up until Tuesday, but at least at that point, we'll know what has happened on Raw. Now, apologies to all of you that have been wondering where have I been at. Well, it's been more like what rock has my computer been under since it was buried in viruses and I had to take it to a Best Buy. So, with that all being said, let's get to what we're all here to hear about. Payback. Now, I don't know about you, but overall, Payback was one of those underwhelming pay-per-views that, in going into it, that turned out to be one of the best. Probably not of the year so far, but definitely better than what we expected, with the exception of four things that bugged the fuck out of me. And we're just gonna get to the first one right away because this one just it's like the Chewbacca defense. It did not make sense. House of Horrors match with Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. Now, I was telling everybody before this even happened, this was going to get done final deletion style. Now, obviously, I had no inside info. I didn't have any, people telling me that this was what it was going to be. That's just what it felt like, considering the fact that A, WWE wasn't giving away any info. B, WWE was asking other people in panels, oh, what do you think final or a House of Horrors match should be? Which means they didn't know where to go with it. And C, having Bray Wyatt on the Raw roster and having this be the end of the feud, I was expecting a bit more out of this in terms of the way it was going to end. Now, did Bray Wyatt win? Well, yeah, he won. But was it on his own? No. Did it make Bray Wyatt look strong? No. Did it add any legitimacy to Randy Orton being the title holder? No. Did Bray Wyatt even get a title rematch? No. In fact, this match was looked at as being so insignificant that you had to have the Bollywood boys and the freaking Jinder Mahal, a guy who went 7 months straight losing, be the guy that helped Bray Wyatt win the match, since there was no disqualification in the match. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. There were three things that bugged me about this match. Number one, this pay-per-view took place in San Jose. Now, the house that they were fighting in, which is where the whole filmography of this started, was pitch black outside, which at the time here on the West Coast, it had not started yet. And the fact that was TNA telling me to pay my light bill, by the way. But the match it was shitty timing. Because obviously it wasn't pitch black dark in San Jose. From what I am hearing, this was a house in Missouri that was used for this. You think people are too stupid to put two and two together and say, hey, it's totally light outside, but this match is all pitch black? I wonder why. Because you fucking taped it, obviously on the East Coast, well before the pay-per-view. And, credit to Matt and Jeff, because when they did these types of things, they did it with fucking common sense. I mean, I don't mind the fighting in the house with the effigies and the you know, that's Bray Wyatt just trying to be creepy. That's Bray Wyatt. What I do have a problem with is the WWE fucking testing my fucking patience because they don't have half a fucking brain to realize that all of this was, in fact, very poorly planned. And the build up to this was just so shitty. Now, the other problem I had with this was, you know, why add in Jinder Mahal and the Bollywood Boys? It was unnecessary and didn't need to happen. And I felt like you are lessening the win over Randy Orton for Bray Wyatt by putting people in that didn't need to be there. I mean, why bother? The whole thing, in my opinion, was just a waste of time. I mean, you could have had, instead of Finn Balor being on the pre-show, which I'll get to in a minute, you could have had Balor versus Wyatt, seeing as Wyatt fucking cut a promo the day of the Superstar shakeup, and, you know, that could have been a match. But, you know, I just feel that in the sense of good taste, this match did not show a creative side of WWE at all. It was Saw meets WWE creative, which is not a good combination. Obviously, WWE only knows how to settle things in a ring, so just let them settle it in the damn ring. Why bother trying to rip off something that the Hardys themselves created and instead, you know, make a jackassery of it and then make the match look weak? Because how the fuck is Randy Orton standing after having a freaking refrigerator dropped on him? I mean, the gaps of logic in this match were so apparent. I mean, there was logic in the ending. It wasn't a logical ending. There was a lack of logic in the booking because one star was on Raw and one was on SmackDown. You dropped the WWE title from it, which I suppose did allow for Bray Wyatt to win the match. But then you have to have Jinder Mahal and the Bollywood Boys play into it. I mean, oh geez, like, was that really fucking necessary? Because if you ask me, it wasn't. I mean, and I could go on ranting and raving about this dumb match, which took 15 minutes out of a 3-hour pay-per-view and had fans just like, whatever, go on to the next match. I mean, just terrible fucking booking here. And in my opinion, whatever WWE Raw's next pay-per-view is, I think it's Extreme Rules. I mean, it could be Great Balls of Fire, which if I was meaning for this to be a longer fucking rant, I would go on about why the fuck are you naming a pay-per-view Great Balls of Fire? That would have been like making a pay-per-view after the Page leaks and making it an all-female pay-per-view and calling it Winter is Coming. I mean, it makes no sense. But I'll be honest with everybody, you're not going to get everything you want out of a pay-per-view. And this was certainly the match to go to the bathroom on, that is for sure. Then you have the pre-show. And there were two problems as far as the segments in the pre-show. Number one, you know, the pre-show segments with Enzo and Cass versus, you know, Gallows and Anderson. Here's my problem. Match was great. Match was fine. It was about 6 minutes. But do you really have to show a fucking commercial in the middle of a match during a pay-per-view? This was a pay-per-view, not Raw, not SmackDown, not NXT. It was a pay-per-view. You are wasting our times with commercials during a pay-per-view. Why? Is that really necessary? 'Cause I didn't see any fucking commercials during any other match, but you gotta fucking jip, Gallows and Anderson and Enzo and Cass? Fucking stupid is what that was. That was corporate initiative at its best. Then you have Finn Balor and The Miz, which, why the hell they didn't just make this a match, I don't know. But, Miz is sitting there, and he's giving Finn Balor basically a hard time about how he'd done this, and this, and this, and that he was the longest reigning NXT champion, and that he was the first ever Universal Champion, and then he lost it all. And then Finn's response to that is, well, I'm going to get my title back. Well, how the fuck are you going to do that with Brock Lesnar holding it in limbo and freaking Braun Strowman and the corporate ass kisser Roman Reigns wanting it? I mean, I see no way for him to ever even get a title shot, much less even get close to the title. I mean, obviously, WWE just fucking plans this shit out on a whim. And the fact of the matter is we know every single thing that they say now, is almost to the word, is scripted. So why? What is WWE's corporate initiative here? To feed Finn Balor to Brock Lesnar for shits and giggles? Or are we going to see a swerve? Because either way, I just do not see this being an effective anything. I think it was just to get the fans hyped up before the pay-per-view, and that's about as much payoff as we're going to see from those words of, I'm going to get my title back. Anyway, so we go into the pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view itself really, it wasn't horrible. It really wasn't bad. And for a post-WrestleMania pay-per-view onto which normally we get no payoff from because it's all about closing loopholes and beginning anew, I think the things that happened were they were fairly interesting. Now, honestly, Raw this past week and SmackDown were absolutely terrible. I mean, last week's Raw was the second lowest rated episode of the year, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and was the lowest rated and fourth lowest watched non-holiday episode outside of football season since '97. Boo! And as far as I'm concerned, it was apparent that they needed to do something to launch them back into the spotlight. Now, you had, I think, one of the best, I would say, you would definitely have one of the better pay-per-views that I've seen where we expected nothing. And we truly expected nothing out of this. So there was a lot that came out of this, including problems. So Now, Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns, there there was a few inconsistencies with the storyline, including unexplained use of SmackDown superstars on a Raw pay-per-view, which is a doy. But you know, and as I've said before, so anyway, to kick off the show, you had the U.S. title, which was Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. Um, that match to me was another problem with the pay per view because Jericho is going to be leaving soon, and granted, these guys went at it the way they should have gone at it at WrestleMania. I mean, this legitimately was a very high paced brawl, which definitely had fans, going. And then there was the part where, you know, Owens was in the walls of Jericho. Jericho, and he just barely got out of it by reaching out his little finger and, catching on the rope. And so he had to break the walls of Jericho. So instead of trying for it again, he beat up Owens, took him outside the ring, started kicking his hand, and then connected his arm to and replaced the staircase, and then just straight up kicked the staircase into his hand, injuring his hand. Just kept trying to fuck up his hand to the point where he couldn't reach the rope anymore. Put on another Walls of Jericho, and there's your tap out. Now, do I like this decision? Was it? No. I don't. I think with Jericho leaving, Owens should have been, the face of America for at least another couple of weeks until Backlash. With that being said, like, where does this leave the match at Backlash? Is it going to be Jericho versus AJ Styles? Is it going to be, because this, unless they decide to pull a rubber match clause out of their hat, was the rematch for WrestleMania. And because going into WrestleMania, Jericho had the U.S. title. We knew that Owens was going to win there. I figured Owens would retain here, but now that that's gone, I mean, we already know the number one contender for the U.S. title is AJ Styles because that was settled a few weeks ago. So now what? I mean, the U.S. title, there's a lot of questions on Tuesday that need answering. So hopefully they don't go into a triple threat situation because I feel like I don't want to see Owens and Jericho fight yet again. I think that maybe AJ Styles does want another piece of Jericho, but even if Jericho were to lose the title, I mean, does that mean he's going to get a rematch, or does that mean he's going to leave it in AJ Styles' hands? And who are we going to see step up with the title? I mean, I really feel like this match delegitimized Kevin Owens in a big way. So, with that being said, I think that you can officially go on to the next match here on this card as soon as my phone decides to stop being El Retardo, like, the final haunted house, because I guarantee that's going to be the final one we see. Then, so, okay. After that match, we had, oh, come on. So after that match, we had another great match, which I have to say was quite good. It was Austin Aries against Neville. Now, Austin Aries. Now this feud, this one is far from over, and I get the feeling that they may stretch this out to SummerSlam, but Neville, he won at WrestleMania, if I'm not mistaken. Austin Aries won tonight, or won last night, excuse me, and it was more or less because of a fuck finish, because Neville didn't want to attack, so he grabbed the referee that was trying to look for a tap, which anybody that knows, heel with title plus referee means fuck finish. And that's exactly what happened, because for the first time in a while, we saw Austin Aries do the last chancery, and he had Neville caught in the last chancery, basically in the center of the ring. Neville didn't have anywhere to go, so he basically disqualified himself in order to keep the title. Now, I like this. I like this feud. I mean, these guys were boss in the ring. I mean, this was incredible. I mean, the momentum there was a lot of momentum shifts. I will admit to that. And then what happened was, on a sunset flip power bomb that Aries then converted into a last chancery, it led to a very interesting finish. And I was expecting Austin Aries to get the title this month. Obviously, I mean, right now, Neville is probably the best heel the WWE has right now, bar fucking none. I mean, it's just, he's the most developed. His character feels the most developed. Although Braun Strowman's getting there, and I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, it feels to me like Neville should be fighting for more than just the fucking cruiserweight title. I mean, this guy is universal bait, but he is stuck in purgatory in the cruiserweight division. So I think he's definitely making the cruiserweight division great again. I'll say that much. Then you had the tag team title match with the Hardy Boys going up against Sheamus and Cesaro. Now, the match was, provided nostalgic fans with a car crash of a match. Each one took some legitimate punishment for their troubles, as Jeff lost a tooth following the shin to the face from Sheamus. These guys were duking it out so hard that Jeff lost a fucking tooth in, like, row A, area 38. I mean, these guys were knocking the shit out of each other, and I give both teams credit where credit is due here. The Hardys for being as old as they are and being able to take it, and Sheamus and Cesaro for really bringing in that hardcore European style from the UK, and these guys just gelled and had an excellent match. It was the match that I think could have been at Mania, but obviously they know they were going to have Hardys at that point. But going to the end of the match, the ending of the match was strong as Sheamus slammed Matt, not knowing he had tagged in Jeff, who landed a swanton bomb on top of both men before earning the pinfall. The two teams continued their trend in recent weeks by shaking each other's hand in the showing of good sportsmanship after the match, but Cesaro and Sheamus quickly returned to attacking the champions, throwing both against the ring post multiple times before Sheamus landed a brogue kick on Matt inside the ring. Matt teased the broken character during often both backstage and during the match, which he was doing. In fact, during the pre-show, he was talking to Goldust and R-Truth and got off a yes kind of thing. And I'm thinking on Raw tonight, I'm getting the feeling they're gonna pull the trigger on that. Because if they don't, then it makes I don't want to be stuck in this, Matt version 1, broken Matt Hardy, freaking, nostalgia act. Give it to us or tell us it's not coming, but don't sit here and tease us with it. Especially at this point. Anyway, then you had the Raw Women's Championship match with Alexa Bliss and Bayley. This was one that I actually had to go back and watch because I went to the bathroom during it because I figured they were going to give Bayley the win with the pay-per-view being in her hometown. But as we've seen before with people like Sasha Banks, with people like Charlotte, with people like, I don't know, Dolph Ziggler, The Miz. We saw it in NXT with Ty Dillinger when he went to Toronto. I mean, it just, every time a hometown superstar is defending a title or just even fighting in a place in their hometown, they lose. And it's almost become expected for them to lose so that the heel can get more heat, blah, 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 blah. Now, if it was me, I'd have let this is obviously going to result in a rematch. So Bayley's not done with Alexa Bliss yet. But, I mean, albeit a meaningless statistic, it was Alexa Bliss that became the first woman to have both the Raw and SmackDown women's titles. Many, many, many people thought that was going to be Charlotte, because even in people's dirt sheets, they were talking about Charlotte being the first one. The fact that Alexa Bliss was the first one to do it, that's a great thing. And I think it's great for Alexa Bliss. And I think it's great that WWE views her as a top talent. She worked her ass off in NXT. She worked her ass off on SmackDown. And now I think she's being viewed by a lot of people in WWE apparently as the top female talent they have. I mean, she said it on Raw Talk after the pay-per-view also. All anybody wants to talk about is 4 horsewomen, 4 horsewomen, 4 horsewomen. I mean, NXT had a lot to offer the women's divisions, and we're seeing it in Nia Jax. We're seeing it in Alexa Bliss. We're seeing it in all kinds of different women. We're seeing it in Asuka. So I think that this is going to be a very interesting feud. I mean, and this is kind of the way it went. She continued to make a run at Charlotte Flair as the top female star in the company. Bliss's strong push since last summer's brand extension continued into a physical match with Bayley's hometown, which took a major turn late when Bliss kicked out of a pin, sending Bayley head first into a ring post under the bottom turnbuckle. Earlier in the match, she landed a head first onto the bottom turnbuckle. Now, Bayley took a lot of hits to the head in this match, including a DDT at the end of the match, which is how Alexa Bliss got her pin. Weary Bailey nearly saved her title with a small package for a 2 count, but Bliss, a two-time SmackDown champion, ended it with a Savage DDT, and then she got the 3. This was a great match, and I have no problems with Bailey losing, although yet again it was in her hometown. And I have no problems with Alexa Bliss winning this either, because Alexa Bliss is legit 5 feet of fury, and I think she's earning that moniker. So as far as women's matches, this was fun. I'm gonna skip the House of Horrors match because the House of Horse match, because this had so many bad plot points. And I've already gone over them. Like, how is it pitch black dark when it's only 6:45 in California? You dumb shits. I mean, if you're gonna pre-tape a segment, at least make it fucking coincide with where you're having the damn pay-per-view. Duh! I don't understand why that happened. Then, and I told you about everything else. It felt stupid. Then you had another problem. I don't really have a problem with this match, but I did have a problem with the way it ended. It was Seth Rollins versus Samoa Joe. It was a strong debut match between these two as Rollins sold his knee injury throughout, which it was always, oh, my knee, and yet he's doing all this creative shit with his body. I'm going to tell you something, WWE. Enough with the knee injury. We don't need to be battered and bruised with the damn knee injury for another 6 months. Okay, he made it to WrestleMania. He beat Triple H. The end. Now, as far as everything, I mean, Rollins had a steady beatdown of sentons and knee bars before rallying with a series of spectacular moves. Rollins could only draw 2 counts, however, landing everything including a sling blade, falcon arrow, frog splash, and a blockbuster from the top rope, which was incredible. I mean, Rollins really was just incredible, but it's certainly, that's TNA to pay my light bill again. But it certainly made for a great match. And it just, Rollins escaped a Coquina clutch by barely lifting Joe into a fireman's carry and rolling him up for the pin. Here's the thing. I'm not sure I agree with the roll up for the pin, because I think this match should have ended in a different way. I think that everyone was expecting that V trigger move, the running knee into the face that Rollins had been practicing. Obviously, it didn't happen. I think a roll up into a pin is kind of a fuck finish for this match. It really should have been either a double count out or a DQ to make, to let Rollins win, but make Samoa Joe still look strong. Now you have one of your strongest guys look stupid. And now your other strong guy, I mean, where does he go from here? Because he's going to need somebody to feud with, which may end up being Samoa Joe, but this is all kind of becoming, when do you blur the lines? Because at some point, you've got to pull these two apart, and you have to find out what their plans are for the future. And you can't do that with these two constantly butting heads. So they may have one more match at Extreme Rules, which it could be an Extreme Rules match, or they may pull them apart as soon as tonight and have them delve into other endeavors. But if this is the last that these two see of each other, it does come off as Samoa Joe looking weak, especially getting rolled up on his own coquina clutch. One thing I will give to them though, very creative way to do it, because and no one has escaped that coquina clutch. So the match, in my opinion, it was it was well played, but a lot of people, including myself, felt that there was a no-win situation with this match, and it had to see expectations that it may not have gotten to. So I think the match was okay, but it definitely it didn't end the way I thought it should have ended. Because if you're gonna push Rollins up to a Universal title spot, okay, but where does this leave Samoa Joe? After that, you have the House of Horrors match part 2, which I've already told you about. And then you had Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns. Earlier in the night, Strowman said Reigns was making the biggest mistake of his life accepting the match. He called Reigns no more than a wounded animal, and that's what happened. A lot of the announcers were saying that he was only 50%, yada yada yada. They were trying to make him sound like Braun was not getting Roman Reigns at 100%. So this is how you continue a build to build a monster heel. And what was a perfectly strong finish to the match, Strowman continued to build an incredible heat after taking a back seat at WrestleMania, with Reigns wearing bandages over his still injured left shoulder and ribs. Yeah, right. Because if you can spear a 7 foot, 450 pound guy, you do not have rib injuries, you dumbass. But anyway, Strowman closed an incredibly physical match by converting a triangle choke into a running power slam before hitting a second such maneuver to pin Reigns clean, meaning he hit 2 power slams on Reigns. Then he pinned him for the 3 count right in the middle of the ring. The action escalated afterward with the crowd cheering, "Thank you, Strowman," and the big man twice used the ring steps to attack Reigns. Like he hit Reigns, dropped Reigns' head onto the ring steps, and then after Reigns fell down, he took the ring steps and then just drove them right into his ribs. With blood pouring out of his mouth from apparent internal injuries. Take that with a grain of salt, because there are blood tablets you can use, but he was coughing up blood in the ring, and the announcers did kind of make it sound like, "Get your asses out here, he's coughing up blood, you fucking morons." And just going into Raw talk later on, where he's coughing up blood on the freaking wall, and then he limped backstage to the ambulance, and after Payback went off the air, Braun Strowman was like, "I'm not done with you yet," and then runs, and Roman Reigns ducks, and he fucking takes the door off the ambulance and runs into a bunch of boxes. Now, that was the end of the pay-per-view. And, honestly, for what it was worth, the pay-per-view was great. The House of Horrors match was fucking stupid. You might as well put that on a fucking stupid sounding pay-per-view like Great Balls of Fire. Honestly, I felt the match between Alexa Bliss and blah, 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 Alexa Bliss and of course Bailey, felt it was a little short. I don't know if that's just me, but I think it could have gone on a little longer, especially with some of the other stupid shit that happened that night. I mean, I'm not for them ripping off Final Deletion again or anything like that, but I think they could have spent a little bit more time with the women's division, considering that there was actually a fucking title on the line. Now, I suppose in closing, I can say this, that I, I'd say out of 5 stars, I'd give it a 3. It was a very average pay-per-view that did have some higher selling points. But where does this leave Braun and Roman? Who's the number one contender for the Universal title? I mean, obviously, it's going to be in limbo until at least July, where they say that, he's going to be making the great and powerful Kali Ma, fucking Brock Lesnar, will finally be there. Whether he's going to fucking wrestle, I have no idea. But, it's going to be interesting to see how they line up the challengers. I mean, it's going to be Rollins. Is it going to be Reigns? Is it going to be Strowman? Is it going to be the guy that wants his fucking title back that he never lost in fucking Balor? Nobody knows anything. Hell, why don't we make it a 6-pack challenge? So it seems to be the thing to do on SmackDown. But to be honest, again, this is a 3 out of 5. It would have been lower, could have been higher if the House of Horrors thing had worked out. But in all fairness, for what we got, if you exclude the House of Horrors match, it was a great pay-per-view. So I've got no beef with the exception of the House of Horrors with this pay-per-view. I loved how physical Matt and Jeff got with the Hardys. I think that is definitely, since there's no revival right now, that's going to be going into Extreme Rules. I think Extreme Rules is probably where they're going to pull the trigger on the broken gimmick, and then from Extreme Rules we go into My Balls Are on Fire. I mean, Great Balls of Fire, and we'll see what happens there. Regardless, decent pay-per-view. Looking forward to seeing what happens on Raw and SmackDown, and we'll go from there. So, for Gary Maloney, I am out.